Hello everyone, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for watching this YouTube channel. Thank you for joining this class as well. So this is the class for HAT 2103 Halal Assurance System with the topic that we're going to share for today is topic 10, Establishment of Monitoring System. Alright, so let's start and we shall have some, we call it revision. What we have learned in the previous class is we learned on the one column in the Halal Toiban Risk Management Plan Summary. So this table is named as Halal Toiban Risk Management Plan Summary. And from the last class, we talked about this column, which is critical limit. And this critical limit shall be prepared according to certain requirements. Okay, so this critical limit is set up to ensure that the halal status and product quality remain within the critical limits, whether it's halal or whether it falls into the requirement of Taliban. So this is the topic that we learned in the previous class. So for today, we are going to learn on the next column, which is monitoring column, where this monitoring column uh, is divided into four sub-columns, where the monitoring activity shall cover what to monitor, how frequent you need to monitor, and who will be taking responsible to monitor the critical limit. Okay, so in this case, actually, when we want to monitor the critical limit, we are actually monitoring the step that this step has their own critical limit. So we want to make sure that the value that we get in the production or in the service of halal products are fall within the critical limit that we set in the previous column. So this is the aim of today's section, which is monitoring, memantau, uh, supaya dalam semua proses, for the whole process and services are falling into the critical limit that we have set. Okay, so this is before we move about this table, let's look on the what we need, why we shall carry out the monitoring activities of the HCP. Remember, HCP is halal critical point. Okay, if you look into this paper, halal assurance in food supply chains, verification of halal certificates using audits and laboratory analysis. Okay, so it say that, for example, monitoring of specific haram ingredient in raw materials, half fabricates and final food product can prove compliance with several halal requirements. So having a monitoring activities actually will ensure that our products are really halal and also are really toyib or safe for consumption or having a nutritious nutrition and then have a high quality. Okay, so the aim of having uh, having these monitoring activities as well was supported by the Gomez et al. 2014. Who say that emphasize that food service establishments shall reinforce the importance of monitoring items and the hygiene of handlers and utensils for implementation of quality system. So when we claim that our products are having a high quality product or services, we also claim that our products are halal. So that's indicate we need to carry out a monitoring activity to ensure that those those quality and halal uh, status remain within the critical limit that we have set up. Okay, so in a nutshell, having a monitoring activities is needed to ensure that the halal status of the product and the product quality remain within the critical limit. So this is the reason why we need to carry out the monitoring activity. Okay, jadi kita perlu memastikan bahawa produk-produk yang dihasilkan dan juga servis halal yang diberikan betul-betul halal dan juga berkualiti seperti yang termaktub dalam critical limit yang kita tetapkan. Okay, so that's the reason why we carry out monitoring activity. Okay, so another further explanation why we need to carry out monitoring activities is because we can maintain the halal to even integrity status. Okay, during the monitoring activities, it will allow us to detect any non-conformance or any non-implementation of control measures and possible product contamination where we need to control them and we need to delve with the contamination in a timely manner. Okay, for example, in the case of, for example, I have a freezer, and this freezer is used to ensure that the product in the cool condition, so there is no bacterial growth for our product. So in the case, for example, any food products, okay, having a bacterial growth in the product will cause food poisoning to the consumer. So in this case, um, in order for me to ensure that the freezer is in a good condition, okay, so I carry out a monitoring activity where every morning when I go to my premise, I go to the kitchen, for example, or I go to the production, I will check on the freezer temperature. Okay, so during the checking on temperature of the freezer, I need to jot down, to write down in the logbook, for example, to say that today, um, 10 May 2023, at what, when, in time, for example, the period, what is the temperature of that freezer or chiller that we are going to use, that we keep our for example, or keep our products. Okay, so during this time, if we saw that, for example, freezer and chiller, uh, all right, so let's continue. When we talk about chiller, uh, for example, we are monitoring the freezer or chiller. Usually, for a freezer, the critical limit for chiller, the critical limit for chiller is between 0 until 4 degree Celsius. While for freezer, sejuk beku, it is between, I think, less than negative 20 degrees Celsius. Okay, so every day, for example, if I want to monitor the chiller, um, I will make a graph, okay, and then I will plot. This is day, this is the temperature, okay. So day one, day two, day three, okay, for example, and then you have to take note the critical limit for the chiller is between 0 until 4 degree. All right. So every day I will take a temperature reading. For example, on the first day, I saw that the temperature is uh, 1 degree Celsius. So I will plot. Okay. And then on the day two, it becomes 2 degrees Celsius. So I will plot here. And on the day three, I saw the temperature is 3 degrees Celsius. So I plot. So, and then from here, we can see the trend. Right? So we can anticipate that on the fourth day, the temperature will become 4 degrees Celsius. And then on the fifth day, definitely the temperature will exceed the critical limit, which is between 0 to 4 degrees Celsius. So from here, I can anticipate that, or we can predict that actually the chiller is broken or something wrong with the chiller. So in this case, I can simply make a corrective action or control measures by telling to my supervisors to replace, or it's not replace, relocate those products in the chiller to another chiller which is in a good condition. So this is the reason why we carry out the monitoring activities, where we can detect non-implementation of control measures, or we can detect potential product contamination because of the control limit being surpassed, right? And then the third aim why we carry out monitoring activities is to prevent contamination from reaching the end user. For example, if when I know that the problem with my chiller having problems, so the temperature is exceeding 4 degree on the fifth day, for example, so that's indicate some of bacteria have grown, and then if this product is delivered to the consumer or to the user, they might cause the food poisoning when they consume the products. Okay, so this is the aim why we need to monitor the production or the process, especially the HACCP that we have identified in the previous class. All right. All right. So when we talk about the monitoring activities, we can refer to the Malaysia Halal Management System 2020. What are those requirements related to monitoring? So in Malay, monitoring is considered we call it monitor. Okay, um, memantau we call it. All right. So and then some uh, sentence might also use the word kawal. All right. So in this case, the monitoring activities is considered under this pelan pengurusan risiko halal, where we call it there is a term mekanisme kawalan. Yeah, mekanisme kawalan, or we call it control mechanism. In this case, usually another term that being used is monitoring mechanism. Right? So this is a requirement for any company who would like to get uh, halal certificate. They need to have the table of halal toilet risk management plan summary to be filled in, and during the auditing by Jakim or Jain, they need to show this that those HACCP that they identify in the process flow are really monitored. Okay, so to ensure that the products are really halal and also toilet. Right? So a detailed information we can see here in the MHMS 2020 also it state about the requirement of monitoring control here on the halal control point, halal risk control, right? And then we also have halal risk management plan. There is a statement to say that we need to monitor. We have the mechanism, method, frequency, and who, which is the one that we are talking about in this class. And then in the internal halal control system, uh, there is a requirement to have a halal risk control in this case. Okay, all right. So for your information, I have to say this one. Internal halal control system is a system compulsory to be adopted by small and micro industries. Any company which is considered MNC, multinational company, they need to carry out the halal assurance system. But for small and micro premises, they are only required to comply with internal halal control system. So since we are talking about controlling and monitoring, both of these small and micro industries as well as the MNC, they are compulsory to carry out monitoring activities, right? So requirement in Malaysia Halal Management System as well. You can see here the company under the halal risk control, they also requirement to say that the company or any applicant shall establish a written procedures for the implementation of halal risk control. Okay, this procedure shall covers R&D, product, menu and services, processing, premise and equipment, employees, packaging, storage and transportation. And halal risk control shall be developed specifically for the determination of halal related risks and separated from other certification systems such as HACCP, GMP, MESTI, BEST, VHM and others. And halal certified logistics services shall be given priority to ensure secure halal supply chain. Okay, there is a why there, but let me explain first on this part. Okay, so as we know, most of uh, companies they don't only have one certification. So in this case, for example, for a company, sometimes they already applied or getting a certification on HACCP, hazard analysis critical control point. Some companies as well, before they get halal certification, they also already have GMP, good manufacturing practice. Some of them they have MASTI, BEST, and VHM and others. So for this company, since they also have the other certification, the way of monitoring contamination, monitoring uh, already established in this specific certification. However, in this requirement for halal, even though the company already have a monitoring mechanism according to the previously certification, they are also required to have a monitoring activities or mechanism for halal assurance system. All right, so it should be separated. Okay, meaning that the company, if they have ASAP, GMP, MESI, so on and so forth, they have one control system according to this certification. But when this company apply for halal certification, they need to develop a specific or an individual mechanism of monitoring for halal assurance system. Okay, this is the first thing. And then on the second part here is saying about we need to prioritize any company that have halal certified logistic, right? So for your information, for now, in halal certification, it's not compulsory to use halal logistic companies to transport or to warehouse to store our products, services and products. But they are required to prioritize any logistic company which already have halal certificate, right? So that's why the statement here say halal certified logistics services shall be given priority. It's not compulsory yet, but in the future, our authority might implement the requirement to only use halal certified logistic providers only. Okay, so perhaps some of you may be thinking, so why there is a halal certified logistic? Okay, previously in the MS, we call it MS, Malaysian Standard 1500. Okay, this one version 2009. This is the first MS 1500. It's on food, halal food. And then we have MS same 1500 version 2019, right? In 2009 version, they don't focus on the whole supply chain of halal. So in this case, we still can produce halal products without using halal certified logistics, halal certified transportation, or halal certified warehousing. But when the 2019 version being issued, this statement has been uh, mentioned in the MS. So this indicate that in the future, the authority will be requesting the company to really use halal certified logistics to transport, to store their product, or to get involved for retailing. All right. And then what else? All right. So if you look on halal risk control in the Malaysia Halal Management System 2020 as well, there is statement about a company shall have a control mechanism of how to control, how frequent you need to control, and who is responsible personnel to control. So these are actually talking about this table, right? So any company is compulsory to have this table. So in the future, if you are working as silent executive or you are becoming an entrepreneur, uh, any company, if your company want to get halal certificate, having this halal assurance system with these two table, this table in front of you and the table that Dr. Nurul taught in her session, is compulsory for you to develop, to prepare. All right. So when do you need to perform monitoring activities? Bila kita perlu buat aktiviti pemantauan? As usual, in the previous class, as I told you, any step that becomes HCP, halal control point, shall be monitored. So in this case, when you carry out the table 1, halal control point table under Dr. Nurul's section, you will decide the likelihood and the impact or severity, and from there you will uh, identify the ranking, right? So any step that having ranking 7, 8, 9, so in this case 7, 8, 9, right? So the step will become HCP, and this step will be brought forward to this table, halal table risk management plan, and you need to monitor this step. All right. So monitoring activities are compulsory for this HCP. So when you need to perform monitoring activities, when you have a step that having a high ranking, which numbers as 7, 8, and 9. Right? So what to monitor? Okay, so a monitoring system shall be established for each HCP identified. We already stated in the previous slide. Okay, this monitoring system shall consist of plan, measurements, or observation. This one as well we have stated previously. Okay, for example, on the freezer and chiller, you need to monitor and then measure the temperature. All right. So what to monitor? There are four sub-columns under the monitoring column, which is the first one is what, how, frequency, and who. Okay, so what is under, sorry, right? So what do you want to monitor? So in the case of chiller or freezer, the aspect that you need to monitor definitely is the temperature. Okay, for example, another example, if you have ingredient you want to, you know that the hazard is there's possibility of ingredient doesn't have halal certificate. So what you need to monitor, you have to monitor the halal certificate validity and the halal certificate genuinity, right? So that is the what column. Okay, on how is unit, how do you want to monitor the halal control point? Okay, so usually you will for example, the freezer and chiller, you will jot down the temperature in the logbook. That's an example. Okay, or another example, if you are monitoring the halal certificate, you will monitor by uh, we call it, you go to halal Malaysia halal directory to verify whether the halal certificate that you receive from your supplier are really genuine and the halal certificate is still valid. And for your information, most of halal certificate, the validity is 2 years, right? And then for slaughterhouse, only 1 year validity. So you have to take note when you want to monitor halal certificate, make sure it's still valid and it's genuine. So this is falls under the how column. And there is a column about frequency. Frequency means how frequent you want to monitor. eh? How many times you want to monitor. For example, in slaughterhouse, you have set up a procedure to say that every 3,000 chicken being slaughtered, the slaughterman shall be replaced by other slaughtermen. So during this frequency, the halal checker will monitor whether the chicken that been slaughtered are properly severed on the four veins and whether after stunning the chicken is still alive, for example, right? So this is the frequency. Sometimes frequency as well could be depend on the company operation. For example, one company, they are 24 hours working condition, okay, working period. So they will divide into shift, three shift, for example. So during this three shift, one shift, you can monitor the temperature, you can monitor the humidity, for example. You can monitor the machinery that you have in the premise in your production within your one shift. All right. So if you have three shifts, so there are 3 times monitoring activities being carried out in the production in one day. All right. And then the last column is who is a personnel that is responsible to carry out the monitoring activities. All right. So this is the monitoring activity that you need to know. Okay. Let's see on the next slide. Okay. So what are activities related to monitoring? All right. So organization or any premise shall establish and maintain a documented procedure for the control of measuring equipment and method used in the monitoring of the Halal Thayyiban risk management plan. So this indicate that, for example, if I want to monitor temperature, okay, so I will, as a Halal executive or as the owner of the premise, I will prepare a procedure. How do you want to record the temperature? Okay, I will also provide apparatus or tools for the um, any personnel to monitor the temperature. So in this case, I will give them the digital thermometer. All right. In addition to general requirement, equipment used to store or refrigerated product, good or cargo shall be designed to achieve the required temperatures and effectively maintain in accordance with the halal and Taliban requirement. So these indicate that for any equipment, beside of you carry out the monitoring activity, it's compulsory to you to do a calibration. Okay, so what we do for calibration, we will call upon third party that can offer services to check the machinery and equipment we have in the production. For example, again, I have a chiller and freezer. I know the temperature is between chiller is between 0 to 4 degrees Celsius. So what I can suggest, I will call a third party, a calibrate. The third party will come and then they will check whether the temperature displayed 4 degree is really 4 degree. So if there is deviation, so they will make a report to us to say that your freezer or chiller is having problem or still okay. Okay, so beside of temperature, we also can have humidity, monitoring airflow, for example, okay, and other uh, activities lah. Beside for food production, for example, we also shall monitor a pest control. Okay, the activities of controlling the pests to avoid any contamination from pests. Okay, if in your premise doesn't have any procedure on how to monitor the halal control point, you need to do small experiment, for example, where the calibration and verification shall be carried out and then it shall be recorded, right? So when you carry out the monitoring, the method that you develop to monitor shall be reproducible and repeatable, meaning that for example, if we are checking on the humidity, kelembapan, humidity is kelembapan, temperature for suhu, for example, you really need to validate or verify whether the equipment that you use and then the monitoring activities are really effective. Okay, all right. So what else? Okay, example of processed food production. Supplier of halal certified ingredient of products. For example, here you can see you can monitor the supplier itself. Okay, if you learn about halal audit, there are a few types of audit. Okay, the first audit is we call it internal audit. Internal audit is an audit that being carried out by our company on in our company. All right, so that's why we call it internal audit. Then there is another audit, we call it secondary audit, where you can audit your supplier. Okay, if your supplier says that they are offering ingredient which is halal certified and then the certificate is still valid, you can also request for monitoring the audit. Monitoring the production of your ingredient, supplier ingredient, and then you will you will look into whether is there any possibility of contamination during their production. Okay, another way of carry out a monitoring, you can also carry out a laboratory test. This is the common approach as well. As I told you, however, in usually for a laboratory test, it can be considered as quality control. The quality control within the company, right? So in Malaysia, there is no for halal certification. Uh, there are no requirement to go for laboratory testing. This has been stated in the previous class. Okay. However, in certain countries such as Thailand, they play a good role. So in Thailand, they have Halal Science Center (HSC), where this HSC advise and carry out the monitoring activities of the raw material processing until it reach to the production. All right. So usually any company will send their sample to this HST to ensure that their product or ingredient are halal. So having a laboratory test internally can also be used as the process of monitoring. Yeah. Another monitoring activities that we shall focus on, please check on the microbial growth, right? So this is example of processed food production. We need to monitor microbial, chemical, and physical specifications. So sometimes on chemical part, we might have a contamination from the ingredient that we have, or sometimes contamination coming from the processing aids. Yeah? And then some contamination also might can be obtained from the physical specification. So in this case, for example, you have product, in the end product having a changing of the texture and color, for example. So in this case, you need to monitor the uh, physical texture of your product. So this is a way of monitoring as well. Okay. Another part of monitoring, monitor the sanitation, right? So the way of people can carry out monitoring on sanitation system, they can go for to call a third party to make a cleaning on their sanitation system. They also can prepare, we call it, uh, we check on the growth of bacteria on their production table, for example. Okay, and then monitoring on the pest control. As I told previously, you need to carry out monitor pest control activities. So you can set up a procedure on how frequent pest control shall be carried out. You can call for third party to come to your place and carry out the pest control system, right? So you can see another example. If you go to KFC, for example, McD, for example, on the outside of their premise, their kitchen, you can see there is a black box, and this black box are actually meant for a bait, umpan, to trap any pests that might want to enter their premise. Okay, so this pest control system shall be monitored as well. Some company, they want to monitor the the sanitation and microbes on the surface contact with the food by using a rapid hygiene monitoring method, where this has become common for any company that would like to use hazard system, hazard analysis, critical control point. So having this way of rapid hygiene monitoring will ensure that the surface contact with the food are clean or unclean. All right. So this is yet another example. What else? All right. You also need to monitor not only your freezer chiller, you need to monitor the equipment and utensils as well. Okay. Other equipment, for example, you have any mixer machines, you have utensils that being used, your brush, for example, and even your sanitation utensil that being used on the machinery, right? So monitoring equipment, monitoring of the temperature, cleaning is part of an example of how you want to ensure the Tojiban part of the uh, product or services lah. Okay, so before we end, what next after the monitoring activities? Okay, monitoring results shall be recorded, definitely. Where possible, monitoring results shall indicate trend towards non-implementation or ineffectiveness of the control measures, or you can find any possible trend that your production might be deviate from the critical limit that you have set, right? So the company or any premise shall document the corrective action. In the case of you find out the deviation during the monitoring, you need to carry out a control measures. Okay. Uh, uh, in this case of control measures, for example, as I told in the previous session, all right, you have a freezer and chiller, and you know that the chiller is having problem, broken, the temperature exceed 4 degrees. Okay, so what you can do, you can relocate your product in the chiller to a new chiller, for example, right? And if you have oven, for example, in bakery, okay, you set up a temperature of 100 degrees, but when you cook your product, it burn. So that's indicate the 100 degree set temperature is inaccurately uh, operated by the machine itself. So that's indicate perhaps the heating mantle of the machine is having problem. So what you can do, when you saw that the deviation at the first place, you have to stop the production, okay, and then you have to uh, segregate the product that's still okay and the product that is which is non-conformance product, you have to segregate to other side. Okay, so the non-conformance product might be go for disposal afterward. Right. So corrective action, shall ensure that the halal Tayyiban integrity, the good of process is protected and control measures are being implemented in the plant and goods during which period the control measures are not implemented are handled according to procedures established. So any corrective action in the afterward that you choose shall be documented as well. Where actually you are going to learn about corrective action. Okay, so if you look at this table, the next column is corrective action. So in the next class, we will look on the corrective action itself. Okay, what you can do for the corrective action. Okay, so I think that's all from me. I hope that you have learned a little bit about this Halal Toyiban Risk Management Plan summary. So we talked about critical limit last class. This class we talk about monitoring. Okay, so under the monitoring there are four sub-columns. What, how, uh, and then the frequency and who is the responsible personnel to carry out the monitoring. And in the next class we are talking about corrective action that you can do uh, for if you find any deviation during the monitoring system. And deviation means you deviate the result deviate beyond the critical limit that you have set up. All right. So before we end, okay, please go to your iTalib, key in your attendance, and the note that I have prepared here has been uploaded as well. And this recording video will be uploaded into the YouTube, and I will attach the link of this recording as well. Okay. So see you in next week. All right, inshallah. That's all from me. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.